Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Please bear with me. There was a sonorous symphony snoring at the hostel last night, so I won't be as alert as I might be normally. Also, I just want to say that what I present here is open to revision and maturation as I move through my own learning process and development. Before I begin, I should say that I'm not an academic theologian. It has been 25 years since I walked in academic institutions. I come to you instead as an experiencer, someone whose life unfolded through a long process of unlearning and rediscovery, of being broken open and remade through what I would call the living Trinity. This presentation draws from my book, Path of Trinity, and my recent booklet, The Architecture of the Human Spirit, which together explore the Trinity as a dynamic structure of consciousness and lived transformation. Path of Trinity is not a treatise in theology, but a record of lived metaphysics, a testimony to what happens when doctrine ceases to be an abstraction and becomes transformation. What I share with you today is not an argument, but a witness, a vision of the Trinity as a movement within the soul, a dynamic architecture of awakening, transformation, and union. Karl Rahner once wrote, "The Christian of the future will be a mystic or he will not exist at all." I would add, the future has already begun. We are living through what could be called a Trinitarian crisis, the fragmentation of inherited forms, the fading of symbolic worlds, and the exhaustion of institutions. But crisis is not the end. In the metaphysics of the Trinity, crisis is the threshold of transformation. The philosopher Theodor Hecker foresaw this when he wrote, "Man, as the image of the triune God, can most beautifully and truly be known according to the analogia Trinitatis. That task begins not in abstraction, but in participation, in rediscovering the divine form within the human spirit." The Trinitarian metaphysics of experience. When I speak of a Trinitarian metaphysics, I do not mean a system to be mastered. I mean a pattern that repeats itself in consciousness, in history, and in every act of love. The mystery of the Trinity is not a static diagram of divine persons. It is a dynamic movement that unfolds through three interior acts. The Father, awakening. The Father represents the moment of awakening, the creative word, "let there be," resounding in the depths of the soul. In lived experience, this appears as the interruption of the familiar, the call to awareness, the sudden break in the known world that invites us into a larger horizon. The Spirit, transformation. The Spirit is the movement of transformation, the alchemical fire that refines the awakened self. In contemplation, suffering, or interior struggle, the Spirit moves between the poles of our being, teaching us to hold contradictions without collapse. The Son, union. Here the self, awakened by the Father and tempered by the Spirit, returns to the world transfigured. Love becomes form, and sight becomes embodiment. The human becomes the icon of the divine. A spiral, not a sequence. These three movements form not a linear progression, but a spiral. Each awakening opens new fire. Each fire gives birth to new love. Each union becomes the ground for a deeper awakening. To live Trinitarianly is not to affirm a creed, but to consent to this movement, to participate in the divine circulation of life. This is inner Theosis, the transformation of the soul through participation in the divine form. The age of the Spirit. We're living, I believe, in what can rightly be called the age of the Spirit. We're entering a time when external structures are giving way to interior depths, when inherited forms open so that the living breath of God may pass through again. In my broader work, I describe history as unfolding through three Trinitarian ages. The age of the Father, of order, law, sacred structure, located in Chronos. The age of the Spirit, interior awakening, transformation, in Aeon. The age of the Son, a future horizon of collective embodiment and compassion, Ion. Many feel this era as instability or loss, but beneath the disturbance is a deeper rhythm. The Spirit always moves through crisis towards creation. When forms crack, presence enter. When outer law fails, the inner word begins to speak. Theosis as practice and embodiment. Theosis is the lived participation in divine life, not escape, not abstraction, but the gradual transfiguration of the human being. In lived experience, theosis is a work of alignment, of allowing the uncreated to recognize itself in the created. In this sense, the Spirit is not an abstraction, but the atmosphere of divine participation, the invisible clarity in which God and soul meet without confusion, without division. Theosis is both ascent and descent, the rising of consciousness into the divine and the descent of divinity into matter. The true measure of union is not ecstasy, but embodiment. Insight becomes tenderness, silence becoming creative action, inner truth becoming outer compassion. Here Sophia shines, not as opposite to the Logos, but as its radiant intelligibility, the fruitful wisdom in which divine light becomes generative. May this emerging age of the Spirit be a time when theology becomes transparent to life and life becomes the living language of the Trinity. For those interested in the fuller metaphysical scaffolding behind this presentation, my booklet, The Architecture of the Human Spirit, develops these themes in greater depth. Thank you.